Hi everyone. So I just ran into this BBC piece on the conflicts in Ethiopia, on the conflicts between the Fano paramilitary group and the Abiy Ahmed regime, and apparently it is supposed to be an explainer of the conflict, of why there is a conflict in Amhara, of why the Fano are fighting Abiy Ahmed, and I found it a little bit what is the word? Very strange and bizarre. And I will come to tell you why. I think it's interesting in the negative sense and strange. They explained the piece on the BBC. But for those of you who are really interested to know why there's a conflict in Amhara, why there is a conflict between the Fano and the Abiy Ahmed regime, I would strongly recommend that you watch an interview that I did 2 days ago with Yosef Gaurewat. Yosef is a really deeply informed commentator. He really knows his stuff. He has really studied Ethiopia, Eritrea, the Horn of Africa. He understands the dynamic. And in the interview just mentioned, he goes into the genesis of the conflict in Amhara, into the various actors, and there are many more actors than I think a lot of people are aware of. It's not just the Fano paramilitary group on one side and the Abiy regime on the other. There are many other actors, and it's a very, very complex network of actors and incentives and objectives. And Yosef sheds light into what is otherwise a very, very complex problem to understand. And the conflict between the Fano and the Abiy regime is only a reflection of that very, very complex problem. And I think Yosef does a wonderful job of painting a picture of what is happening in a way that even people who don't really have a nuanced understanding of Ethiopia would be able to grasp. And so please do that. Again, if you're really interested in understanding the political dynamic in Ethiopia. But I found this piece very, very strange, and I'm going to tell you why. And actually, the whole thing, the strangeness, the bizarreness, if that's a word, starts in the first sentence. Here you could see the BBC said that the conflict is the latest sign that Mr. Abiy is battling to live up to his noble lordship. This is really interesting thing to say. For the BBC to say that Abiy is still battling to live up to his noble lordship, whatever that is, because this is the same man who has killed close to 1 million people in Tigray, who has been credibly accused of war crimes, of crimes against humanity, of ethnic cleansing, and possibly of genocide. And the reason why the charge of genocide hasn't been made official is it's a very tricky and legal term, but for all intents and purposes, serious people who really understand what he did in Tigray with Eritrea know that genocide was committed. But let's leave that aside for now. So Abiy has been accused of war crimes. He has been accused of crimes against humanity. He has been accused of using starvation. And I'm not saying he has been accused of by some obscure organizations or personalities. He has been accused of those things by the UN, by the American government, by the European Union, and by a lot of other well-established, credible bodies. So for the BBC to say that Abiy is still battling to live up to his noble lordship is a farce. Is a preposterous. Of course he has lost that battle. Of course he's a farce. Of course everybody knows that awarding him the Nobel Prize was a grotesque decision, and that there is nothing that Abiy could do now to salvage his reputation, whatever reputation he had to begin with. But it's not just the first sentence. If you read everything, and if you read between the lines, there is no mention of the destruction that Abiy has caused in Tigray, in Oromia, and in Amhara. There is no mention of how wholly unsuitable he is as a leader. Of course, I understand editorially. I think the BBC wouldn't have the leeway to freely say the thing that I said. So I understand that, but one would expect them to mention the kind of atrocities that Abiy has exacted over the past couple of years. If they are going to mention his Nobel Prize as a matter of balance, you would expect them to mention the other thing that he has done in Tigray, the other thing that he has done in Oromia, but there's no mention of that. And of course, it's not difficult to see if you read between the lines again. This is something that I think must have been written by someone who is very sympathetic to Abiy. So that is something that really caught me by surprise. And the other thing, which is as bizarre and as strange, is the account that the BBC has given of the Fano. Now, the Fano, the paramilitary group, have also been responsible for the most serious and heinous crimes in Tigray, of ethnic cleansing, of murdering people and throwing their bodies to rivers, of burning human beings alive, of stoning people to death, and of a lot of other extremely graphic crimes. But there is no mention of that here. So the Fano are described as volunteer fighters. They are described as fighters who had been on the side of Abiy during the Tigray war, and now, because of some sort of political disagreement with Abiy to do with disarmament, they are fighting Abiy. That's all there is in the piece. There is no mention of the other thing that the Fano have again been credibly accused of by the UN, even by Ethiopia's own Human Rights Commission, who, for all intents and purposes, is a state propaganda machine. But even by the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, the Fano has been accused of all those, maybe because of the connection that the commissioner has with the Fano. Maybe that's not how the commission hasn't said that the Fano has been responsible, but it hasn't denied that the Fano has committed those things either. So that is why I was really surprised that as a matter of balance, the BBC felt comfortable to write what I think is a sympathetic piece for Abiy, even a puffery, you could say, and I don't know why. I mean, I don't understand the editorial process in the BBC. I don't understand who the people who actually wrote this I mean, the only thing that I could say, and I think it would be evident to anybody who will read the piece, is that it was written by someone who is very sympathetic to Abiy, and so those are the things that I just want to bring to your attention. It's not very important, actually. I mean, in a way, that is the kind of stuff that we have been flooded from Western commentators. So you wouldn't expect them to be nuanced. So in that sense, it's not a surprise. So that I think that is enough with respect to the BBC's article. But to emphasize the first point that I made, if you really want to understand the source of the conflict and its ramifications and all that, please do watch the interview that I did with Yosef. And thank you for today, and bye bye.